Hi guys, and welcome to a Hector lecture guide to the Unending Coil of Bahamut Ultimate. This guide is going to specifically focus on the first phase of UCoB, Twintania. This will be the first in a series of 5 videos breaking down the entirety of this very long fight. To start with Twintania phase, you want your party positioned from the west of the arena, ready to pull the boss towards the number 1 way marker. Immediately afterwards, make sure nobody is near the main tank, as they're targeted with an untelegraphed tank buster, Plummet. This cleaves in a small area around them. It doesn't hit too hard, so no heavy mitigation needed here. Next up is a combination of 2 mechanics. Twister, which you'll see the cast bar for, and Fireball, which is going to target a random player, anybody but the main tank, with this marker here. And it's essentially a stack marker. At the end of the Fireball mechanic, everyone needs to stack on H2. They need at least 5-6 people in that group to be able to survive the damage, depending on the level of shielding and mitigation. Twister is the key one to focus for. This is a very deadly mechanic that you'll see all throughout the ultimate, so learn the timing for it early. When Twister finishes its cast, every player needs to be moving because 4 players are going to have a very small AoE dropped underneath them. If the player is not moving, they'll immediately hit it, die, and kill people around them. If you happen to move where somebody else is, you'll hit their Twister, die, and probably kill at least a couple people around them. The way to deal with Twister is like this. Wait till the cast bar is about here, maybe a little bit further, depending on how you want to time it and how your ping is, and then start your movement, making sure that you don't move where anybody else has been. This movement here is specifically designed to make sure everybody's stacked for the Fireball at the end. The main tank has avoided it because you don't need everybody there, and it's easier for positionals. Now, just to show you what could have gone wrong, if any player at any point in time, until these Twisters disappear, walks into one of those, they die, and they're going to hit anybody in range with a knockback that will almost certainly send them into the wall of death. So, be very careful. Don't walk into the Twisters. Don't move where anybody else has been. While we're waiting for those Twisters to disappear, the boss starts to cast Death Sentence. This is a tank buster. It hits quite heavily, and it requires a tank swap. So, have your off-tank provoke. There's no cleave to that one, so don't worry if your main tank and off-tank are too close together, but have your main tank immediately move because the off-tank is now targeted with a Plummet. It's very possible to end this mini phase of Twintania's phase right here, or even before the Plummet, but if you don't, the mechanics just now repeat. You'll go back for another Twister Fireball combo, and the phase repeats until you get the boss below 74%. When you do get the boss below 74%, you'll see this little purple Neuralink drop, hopefully smack dab in the middle of the number 1 waymark. We're going to use that later. For the rest of the fight, be aware that stepping in the Neuralink can help to reduce damage of some attacks, but it also significantly reduces your damage output, so do not stand in them unless a mechanic requires. After the Neuralink is dropped, have your new tank pull the boss over towards the number 2 waymark, and everybody else wants to follow, except for one player, in this case R1, who is responsible for Liquid Hells. The Liquid Hells are a series of puddle AoEs that target one player far enough away from the boss. Note, they don't necessarily target the furthest player. If there are 2 players that are far enough away, it's completely random as to who gets targeted. So make sure that everyone except for your designated baiter is close enough to the boss to not accidentally bait one of these. Once the first one hits, your player that's baiting just needs to move around the arena slowly as they bait all 5 of these puddles. It takes about a second for these to become active, so the player baiting, in this case R1, doesn't need to worry too much about how quickly they get out. However, once they are active, they're completely deadly. If any player walks into them from this point onwards, or if R1 takes too long to get out, they'll get a dot applied to them that will kill them on the first tick. As soon as they finish baiting all 5 of those, a random DPS will be targeted with Generate. Generate is going to have the boss spawn a little orb that's going to chase after the player that's been targeted. This is a tricky mechanic to deal with, but with a really easy solution. See, if this orb touches the player that it's chasing, it'll explode and it'll wipe the party. If this orb touches anyone else while chasing that player, it'll explode and wipe the party. And you can't just run away from it forever because, you guessed it, it will explode and wipe the party eventually. Instead, to deal with this, we take advantage of the Neuralink. As long as this orb is exploded while the player who pops it is in a Neuralink, it does a little AoE around them, but is otherwise completely harmless. Be aware that while this is happening, another player is going to get targeted with those liquid hell puddles, a set of 5 again, so make sure your R1 is out far enough, because if no one's out far enough, these may get baited onto the player in the Neuralink. That would be bad. There you can see the size of the AoE roughly. It's not too large, and most players should avoid it naturally. Continue to bait the rest of the set of 5, and be aware that these don't last forever. They're going to actually, some of the original set will start to fade while these final liquid hells are baited here. Just to rewind a little bit, if you happen to have this happen, which is a very real possibility, that your baiter is the one that is targeted with the generate, you need to have a backup baiter. And all that happens is R1 in this case is going to go to their Neuralink to deal with the hatch, while R2 goes out to bait the liquid hells in their place. Fast forward again. Once we'd finished with that liquid hells generate combo, your current tank is going to get targeted with Death Sentence, so once again, mitigate and have your other tank provoke. Following the tank swap, we get another generate with another DPS targeted with the generate. Now, instead of having that player immediately go in the Neuralink, they're going to position near to it, because before this one goes off, we get this combined with a Twister. Everybody should make sure they've got room and have a plan of where they're going to run so that they don't accidentally stay in their Twister and they don't run into anyone else's. For R2, who's dealing with the Neuralink and the generates right now, they're just going to wait until their Twister is baited, and they're going to bait their Twister out of the Neuralink so they can move into it. It looks like this. Now, main tank is going to get hit with a plummet, and right about here should be where this phase ends again. You should get the boss below the standard 44% is what you need to cause another Neuralink to drop. If you don't, it just goes back to the beginning with the liquid hells baits, and it continues and repeats just like before. Once the boss drops this second Neuralink, have your tank pull the boss to number 3 and position ready for the next mechanic. Everybody needs to, again, be quite near to the boss because we're getting another set of baited liquid hells, so R1 is out far enough to make sure they're the one that baits. This is another set of 5. Bait them along the wall, out of the way of everybody else. We now get a double generate. 2 DPS will be targeted with this, completely random who gets targeted, and the only thing they need to do is decide who's going to go to the Neuralink at 1 and who's going to go to the Neuralink at 2. You can do this with callouts on voice chat, or you can just look at who's closer to which and adjust. While this is happening, 2 more mechanics get stacked on top of this. A random player is going to get targeted with a fireball, so we're going to need to stack shortly. And we're going to get another set of liquid hells, but unlike before, these are completely random. They're going to target a random player, and all 5 of them will target that player, assuming they stay alive. The only player who cannot be targeted by this is the main tank. That does mean that the player with the fireball, or either the players currently sitting in the Neuralink, could be responsible for dealing with those. Regardless of who gets targeted, everybody should get ready to move to the back of the boss, and the player who gets the liquid hell dropped on them should just make sure that they are moving them in such a way that they're not going to be dropped on the party. Preferably, they wrap around, so after 5 of these dropped, they can join the party for the fireball stack. Your main tank and off tank can position ready for a death sentence, so the off tank is getting ready to provoke. And immediately afterwards, have your main tank move because your off tank will get a plummet. Now we get another double generate, and the only twist to this is it will be combined with a Twister. Both players that have been targeted are going to position near to a Neuralink, but not inside it. Everyone else spreads out, making sure they have space to be able to dodge the Twister and won't run into anyone else. Wait for the Twister cast to appear, and when the timing is right, move, with both players who are dealing with the generate moving into their Neuralink at that time. When this is finished, make sure nobody's near your off tank, as they're targeted with one more plummet, and then from here on, everything is just going to repeat for this mini phase. So your R1 will be targeted with more of those liquid hells, and we go back to the double generate fireball random hellfire combo. If you manage to get the boss below 0% before 3 minutes, then the boss will drop one more Neuralink and fly off, and you have completed this phase. If you'd like to see a quick summary of all of the different mechanics that happen and repeat on the screen here, there it is for each of the different positions the boss can be in. If you look at it, honestly, there's not a lot. There's a very small number of mechanics that just require some practice to get the timing down. Hopefully you'll start to get consistent as this phase, as you'll need to down it a lot while practicing the other phases in this fight. If the boss has died within time, have the entire party stack in one of the Neuralinks together, ready for the start of the next phase, which I'll cover in my next guide. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or tips or suggestions in the comment section below. Take care.